Afternoon and welcome back to the Galway Film Fleadh and to this afternoon's screening of Tomorrow is Saturday. I hope you enjoyed that beautiful, very warm documentary, fantastic documentary about the arts and a great artist as well. It's my privilege to be joined by the man himself, Seán Hillen, here at the moment, as well as the film's director, Gillian Marsh, and co-director Gretta Ohle. Thanks for joining us, folks.
Hi.
Having us.
Hi, everybody.
This is quite the All-Ireland call, I believe. I think are we joined from, is it Dublin, Seán, and then Mayo?
Yes.
Gillian, and where are you, Greta?
Dublin, Temple Oak.
Dublin, okay, great. So from Dublin to Mayo. Well, it's a, cross.
And Yuri's here
border
spiritually.
I'm glad to hear it. Very glad to hear it. So listen, well, first of all, let me just say how much I enjoyed the film. Like I said at the beginning, so warm, such a great insight and such a great character portrait. It's a beautiful idea to make a film about a collage artist undertaking a decluttering. There's something quite poetic about it. Maybe tell us, Gillian, just about how it all started and how you and Seán came to work on this together.
A mutual friend introduced me to Seán, Chris, and I went to visit him in his house. And I think the minute I walked through that big door into the house, every time I moved, I hit something and something else fell on the floor. And I just thought, this man is amazing. And the more I talked to Seán, he's just such a fantastic individual. I just thought, I have to tell this story because he's an artist, but his human story, all the emotions within the documentary and that are all emotions we all have, and it was just a fantastic person. He's so articulate and eloquent that it had to be made. So I was delighted when we managed. A lot of people have tried to make programs and have made shorts about Seán. So it's good to have been able to make the full feature.
I'm glad you did. Did Seán take much convincing?
No, Seán is very enthusiastic, and I don't know. I mean, I still have to thank him so much for allowing us into his life. I mean, it's quite a scary, daunting thing to have a documentary crew and you don't know what they're going to do to you. So it was wonderful to be allowed into his life. And I think, we're at a point in Seán's life where he was deciding he was going to do some decluttering and trying to get his life straightened out in some ways. And it was a daunting task. Like, I had a fantastic crew with Richard Kendrick and Ray Tucker and Cornelia and everybody to help me declutter it. And I got Greta involved from the very first day. She's edited the whole program. So as we were shooting, as you can imagine, decluttering Seán's house was a hell of a job. And as we were shooting, Greta was working in the edit because you didn't know which box was going to have something amazing pop out of it. And that kind of created the story because every box we found had another complete story and another complete area of Seán's life. So as Greta was in the edit suite, being able to highlight anything and see if we were coming across, if there was something that we might have missed. As you could see, there was a lot of action going on. And so that was the kind of way we went about it. But then we took a number of weeks in the edit suite, and Greta and I created the order, the chronological order, and just to try and get Seán's story. She's been watching many hours of it.
Before I actually come to you, Seán, I'd like to take you up on that point, Greta, because it strikes me that decluttering is sort of kind of like what the editing process can be like as well.
Yeah, completely. And it's all about refining, so you start, like, it's the edit process essentially. Like, you have this abundance of material and physical material, but also content, and you just have to keep going through it. Like, it is like decluttering, exactly, because you find things that you want to include, and up until the fine cut, we were dropping things just to get it down tighter and kind of make it more contained, and you're letting go of little things or little items, physical items that he was talking about, or and so to get the whole sense of the story, it was like going through all the elements of his life, like going through all the clutter in his house and then finding it that way. So yeah, very much so.
So Sean, tell us what's it like sitting down to watch the film, you know, here is your life kind of moment.
It was a once in a lifetime experience. I think. I think my daddy used to say, "I wish I had the gift to give you see yourself as others see you."
You might have to run that one by me again.
It's Robbie Burns. I wish I had the gift to give you to see yourself as others see you.
Wow.
Wise words. And as an artist, you're selling your personality all the time, and you're trying to keep it integral. You're trying to keep the real thing. It's got a weird old thing. So I did suggest it to him. I had a wonderful therapist at post-diagnosis. And I said to him one day, you know, I can't deal with the studio, and I have this idea to get a TV company involved and make a one-off artist studio hoarder special thing at this moment. And he said, well, a friend of mine's a TV producer. And we were finishing our relationship, so he was just about on the verge of appropriateness. And he introduced me to Gillian. But I've had 9 or 10 or 11 micro documentaries and mini documentaries made, you know. And so I have by very good people. Wildfire did one. My friend Greg's been filming me over years. Brian Mead did pieces. You know, very good people did pieces, and television company did pieces. And so a full-length documentary has been something one wishes for. I said it to a friend years ago in London who was documentary filming me, and he said, oh, they haven't made one about George Bernard Shaw yet, so join the queue.
Well, that explains your comfortability with the camera, I think. And
kind of.
You know,
it was a strange collaboration where I completely trusted Gillian. You know, I met her, and I wouldn't have done it if I hadn't. I trusted Chris, who introduced us, and I trusted Gillian, and I thought, well, she has to keep the integrity of what she does, and I have to keep myself. And I thought I was just old enough and crusty enough now to, and it's a fascinating moment in my life, which in the end is relatively positive, one hopes.
Yeah, no, it was a beautiful ending. And tell us, I mean, has the decluttering stuck?
Kind of, yeah. I mean, I got rid of a third of the volume. Yeah, no, and I've put everything on casters, which suits me. And no, it has kind of worked. That was part of it. But I didn't really. I had no idea what I was letting myself in for, of course, and that's a terrifying thing. And I was very, very lucky to find these wonderful people, you know. And Greta's done an exquisite thing with it. So I'm enormously relieved, and
that's great.
Feeling, yeah. I just did what I did, and they filmed it. I did things occasionally twice, as you do for documentary.
Giving away all the
secrets, Sean.
No, well, it's just, you know, like I would just be. I'm so used to a camera because I'm taking pictures all the time. So when a camera's pointed at me, I kind of have learned to forget it, and I talk the same rubbish that I usually do. And occasionally they'd say, Sean, could you say that again?
But shorter.
And sometimes it wouldn't work. Sometimes it wouldn't work. I'm not an actor. So anyway,
I'd love to ask how you think the how it's affected the work, because you talk, you know, at the end. I mean, a part of what you're talking about is being taken on by a larger gallery and financial burdens being eased. But in terms of that weight being lifted, do you see it influencing your work at all?
Well, I'll be a hell of a lot comfortabler and be more able. I think I'm going to survive now. You know, I'll be harder to ignore, and that's just the nature of being an artist. If you're going to be a troublemaker, you know, that's just you got to roll with it. And I'm feeling very lucky.
That's great. Actually, just on being a working artist, I mean, I think you make some excellent points during the film. I think it really highlights the reality of it. You know, when you see campaigns happening at the moment, like the National Campaign for the Arts, how important do you think these are in terms of bridging the reality as well for people who maybe aren't aware of the conditions of working?
There's enormous pressure on an artist to maintain your image, and also your image of success, because nothing sells like success, you know, and lack of success frightens people, frightens buyers. So, and you of course, you have to maintain that. And there's the counter pressure in me is to be completely honest and open with people. And the other thing is like the changes, I've seen phenomenal changes in society, for instance, where, you know, not everybody became a photographer, but suddenly there were a lot of photography courses and there were people trying to make a living in it. And, you know, like the print market, for instance, phenomenally changed because very able people who were working in the graphics area moved into fine art print. So that we're in this very strange changing world, and you have to keep your wits about you and be lucky. You know, there's no substitute for it. But I've been lucky a few times, and I'm hoping to continue to be. But it's I'll tell you, I say one thing is that it's brilliant individual people through my life and career who've kind of helped me along, like Gillian, actually deciding to do this thing and to do it with all the gusto and brilliance that she has. You know, it would, you know, it mightn't have been the same with somebody else.
Fair play, Gillian. And I'd actually, you know, I'd like to ask you, Gillian, being familiar with some of your other work as well, you know, they seem to focus on these characters that kind of create things or see the artistry in the things that they do. In a way, I find it almost in conversation with another film that we're showing later this week, Pat Collins's film, Henry Glassy Fieldwork, which is all about what cultures and what people create. Is it the characters you're drawn to, do you think, or is it the artistry that comes from them? Is it a bit of both?
I'd say the characters primarily. I think I kind of meet the characters and I probably feed off their energy and everything, you know. I mean, like from the funeral director a few months ago to Seán, they're very kind of, God, how would you explain them? They're both very strong characters, and yet they have such, you know, interesting lives. And for Seán, what I wanted to do, because it's so hard to be an artist these days, and they all have so much, you know, just to keep up there and keep out there, and to see something in his art, because there's a lot of art programs that aren't accessible to everybody who isn't really into the art industry, that I wanted to try and make sure people would see the stories behind Seán's collages. And I was even harassing Seán for descriptions of his collages, but just even like watching how he built up Sister Christina, and, you know, there's a picture from here and a picture from there. And to be, once you know a little bit more about somebody's art, then it means something to you. But I think so, just I wanted to get his story across that way, and Greta really captured that, and just show also how tough it is to be an artist and how you have to stay so confident to be out there, you know, because people are very quick to kind of, you know.
There's an argument that it takes a team as brilliant as this to mediate an artist nowadays, because there's such competition in the visual. You know, we're so used to just flicking pictures. And so I studied film and all of that business, but it's very, very hard to actually reach the public unless you have a kind of cheap and quick story. So absolutely, documentary film is actually an amazing thing. It's very wonderful that we had the breadth and the time. You know, I think there were 30 days of filming scheduled for this, which is a phenomenal amount. And I was worried Greta was going to sue me for trauma or something.
You didn't get the letter yet, no.
Really though.
That's such an interesting point that you make about how images have sort of become cheapened in the digital space. They've sort of become currency, I suppose. It's how people communicate. I mean, do you feel pressure at all to enter your images into that kind of you know, conversation, to digitalize them somewhat, or
very
would
much,
you feel that
very much? You're not an image maker if you're not on Instagram, really, probably. And you know, it doesn't. I'm Twitter phobic, for instance, because it's just too anxious making and too rowdy for me. But I can handle Instagram, and I'm going to kind of use that more. But it's not made for an artist with a back catalogue. On the other hand, it's there. And it's kind of wonderful, you know. I have the world's worst website, which I invite you to go and visit. Set up in 1843.
You're a pioneer.
I've forgotten what your question was.
Tell people at home what the website is.
Oh, it's SeánHillen.com.
Oh, well, that's easy enough.
Yeah.
I also wanted to ask you guys, sorry, go ahead.
No, just also the fact that Sean discovered he had Asperger's as
Oh.
well was, I thought, a very strong thing. Like, I mean, we're all, there's an awful lot of, you know, people are probably on the spectrum, myself and everything.
For
but
sure.
It's just all the different, you know, anxiety and strength, and yet you manage to get through this world that's very complicated and very demanding and very harsh, you know, on you. Like, I just wanted to, like, when you meet somebody, you know, with Asperger's, well, you meet one person with Asperger's, and I just think that Sean is a very amazing character, and he, you know, if he had somebody managing him, as he said there, for the boring sides of it, that is just, you know, that he hates doing.
If I must
so
my
much
or in there, that you know, I discovered from the guy who diagnosed me that all my artistic heroes had it. Joyce and Yates and Beck, very much. Desmond Fitzgerald, Michael Fitzgerald, who used to be professor of adolescent and childhood psychiatry at Trinity. And he's kind of the national, you know, elder expert on Asperger's. It's a fascinating thing. I didn't know it existed. And it turns out, you know, Joyce and Yates and Beckett probably are, Pierce and De Valera, probably, very amusingly. Wow. And so many people that, you know, that have made impact on the world. On the other hand, there's Paddy Kavanagh and Brendan Behan and Miles, who all drank themselves to death in their middle age because it wasn't working for them. So I feel very, very sorry for the geniuses stuck in their bedrooms, you know, or the people who just it's not working for. And yeah. I think we need a lot more. I think I have a new understanding of history, believe it or not, that it's a battle between the Aspies and the psychopaths.
That's fascinating, and I suppose it underscores the importance of talking about these things and putting them on film.
Yes, it's wonderful,
well
truly
done.
Wonderful, and we don't know about these things really yet. We're still just discovering, you know. But there definitely is something. Like some of my closest friends, the most brilliant people I know, are probably undiagnosed Aspies and won't accept it because they think it's somehow demeaning, and they're very successful. So I think we have a long way to go with this business still, you know. It's a very strange, Absolutely. Mysterious thing. And again, it's one of the things it was what the Constellations pictures were about, was I think neurodiversity is a new political horizon that we haven't really looked at. Let's throw that in there. Sorry about that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great, you know, insight, a good thing to consider. And, you know, on that, what you both are saying there about sort of the anxiety that people feel, and we don't know what sort of end of a spectrum anyone might be on.
Yeah.
All of those feelings are kind of heightened in the current moment yes. where we've been isolated. And of course, you guys finished a film during this period. Maybe tell us a little bit about what it's like, you know, closing a production in the time of COVID-19.
Well, we were lucky, really, because it took a lot of the other things that pull you out of an edit suite or pull you away from it. You know, we solely were looking at it, but we hadn't realised, I mean, that we were accepted into the Galway Film Fleadh till early June. So it was Fleadh then, and Gretta, I mean, it was like 24/7 by the end of it. As you know, we were one of the last ones, I'd say, in the gate of the.
I wasn't going to tell anyone, it's fine.
But it was brilliant because we got great momentum, and it was a huge edit. We had so many other good scenes that unfortunately never made it in because we couldn't, like 2 hours. But it was great. We had a great kind of buzz going for it. And Greta, she did the longest hours. She was kind of up to the edit suite for a number of days without any sleep. But you got into the zone. But she's
I'll tell you something about the lockdown is that like I have an office and I work from post houses most of the time, but because of lockdown I was at home and I moved all my computers home, and I felt that because I was in the house all the time, I felt like I was completely in the Seán bubble. So I literally was going from my bed to the desk, to the fridge, to the desk, to the toilet, to the desk, to the bed, to the desk, and for days on end, like towards the end, like around the clock editing, and like just buzzed on caffeine and going, okay, I can do this, and just actually getting a little bit delirious on tiredness, but on the completely being zoned into a project like never before, because I don't have my partner going, Greta, it's 11 p.m, come home, which would happen, you know, when you get stuck in towards the end of deadlines, and it's kind of like, yeah, I'll be up in a minute. You know, it's just a totally different. It becomes your house becomes your work environment for just a finite period of time. But I actually found it really helpful, and I think the work I did, because I had started cutting this last year, and then we finished it during lockdown. So the work I did in lockdown, I feel, is better than the work I did at the start last year. It was definitely, I got the flow of it, the focus of it, the style of it, the rhythm of it. The rhythm of it was a huge thing. And because I was so immersed, when I went back to look at I was doing the latter half, cutting the latter half in lockdown. So I went back to start, like, look at the top of it again. On a run, I was going, oh, what I thought had been locked from the first half was now not as refined and not as quirky and not as, it just hadn't kind of locked in the rhythm as the half had, you know. So I had to go back.
That's interesting.
Had to go back then, and I do think lockdown had a big part of that. Yeah, I suppose it does have its positive connotations as well. I do have to wrap it up a bit, but I just wanted to let you guys know about the great reaction online as well. People are not using their words, but Mary Lou Fallon-Carty gives you an okay sign, and Keith Bogue is giving you the thumbs up. So I think positive reactions from the audience there. I hope they'll also be able to see it on the big screen at some point in the near future. But for the moment, I just want to thank you all for joining me here today. Gillian Marsh, Gretta Ohle, and Seán Hillen, thank you so much. And for your wonderful film as well. Yeah, thanks again for joining us at the Galway Film Fleadh. Cheers. Thank you. Bye. Bye-bye.
Thanks for having us.